Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the QB List pre-kickoff live stream here. I'm joined again by my co-host Matt Dean. He took a little hiatus last week, but he's back and ready to roll. Matt, how you doing today?
Pretty good, man. Better than the Cowboys.
Mm.
You got to be feeling good with Julio being back. Y'all actually looked pretty explosive last week.
Yeah, it was nice to get a win. Hopefully, they start reeling them off. It's amazing what they did without Dan Quinn. So maybe there's a culture change coming for Atlanta.
Yeah, who are you? Are you hearing any rumors about who they're going to go after? Or?
No, I haven't seen any coaching candidate stuff, but I'm just trying not to think about that until the off season.
Are you putting in your application? Or?
I don't think there's going to be any big things happen with that until the end of the season. So it's kind of hard. I don't know that there's ever been a successful, coaching hire in the middle of the season and then take over the next year. So
yeah.
But we got a lot to talk about today. First things first, a little bit on the COVID front. No crazy news this week. It looked like the Raiders were going to lose their whole offensive line, and then this morning they said just Trent Brown was the only offensive lineman out this week. So that's good news for the Raiders and good news for Josh Jacobs owners because we thought he was going to have to deal with backup linemen. So good news for the Raiders, good news for the league that no COVID cancellations or moving games this week. So it's been a wild season. Hopefully we can get through it.
Yeah. Well, we did have a move so Tampa and Las Vegas were supposed to play, I think, on the Sunday night game, and they flipped them with Seattle because of the whole O-line thing. So now Tampa Bay's playing at 4 and Seattle's playing primetime instead. But thankfully, none of the games got canceled or moved. So,
yeah, they did flex Seattle and Arizona to the primetime slot, which I don't think anyone's going to argue with. Watching Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson in primetime is pretty nice. So, we will move on to the injury news. The biggest news, again, is that Michael Thomas is out. I'm sure at this point, any Michael Thomas owners are probably in dire straits. He may have quite a bad record at this point, and they're saying that next week is also in doubt. Matt was telling me before we started. So bad news for Michael Thomas owners.
Yeah, it says that he's in jeopardy of missing week 8 against the Bears. And I don't know if that's the one you wanted to come back for his first game anyways. But I believe the Saints already have their bye, or is that coming up still?
I think they had it last week.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it was so he was out with the ankle, and then he got suspended for a game, or they say, and then he tweaked a hamstring. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, supposedly the reason he didn't play last time before the bye was the fact that he punched a teammate or something like that. It was team inflicted. I mean, they went ahead and suspended him, but yeah, it just seems like the health stuff is coming back to haunt him a little bit here, and he just can't get healthy.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and we'll talk about him a little later in the buy sell section, but I mean, I've had my injury woes on my teams, as I know you have on some teams as well. We're both owners of Austin Eckler in different places, and it just makes it really hard when, especially, people spent a top 5 pick some places on Michael Thomas. I mean, Eckler was more of the 15 to 20 range, I guess, but even harder when your top guy is out. So.
Yeah, for sure. 1 second before we get back to the injuries, we got a question here from Matt Tavernite, who's a regular on here. He says, Tanyan or Fant standard? I'm going
Fant.
Oh, really? I'm going Robert Tonyan. I don't know.
Maybe with no Aaron Jones, he might, but.
Yeah, I just like Robert Tonyan. I mean, the upside in that offense and playing the Texans defense doesn't scare me, but I don't know. I like Tonyan on that one.
Well, Fant, in all of his games so far this year that he's played, he's went 5 catches, 5 catches, 4 catches, 5 catches, and 6 targets, 10 targets, 5 targets, 6 targets. So I just think they don't have many weapons, and he's going to be heavily involved. And it might be there's possibility of snow there in Kansas City, so I feel like that sometimes bodes well for tight ends.
Yeah, so maybe if you want like the safer play, go Fant. If you want maybe the higher upside, go Tanyan.
Yeah, I feel like Fant's the more like, if you need 10 points, 10 to 12 points, go Fant. If you need the upside of 20, go Tanyan.
Unfortunately, Tanyan had 30-something against me. He lost me my only game in our main league this year, so I don't like to talk about him. But the second, let's see who else is out, the most notable. Following along just real quick with the Michael Thomas thing, Emmanuel Sanders is also out. So the Saints are going to be without two of their top receivers. Looks like it's going to be all up to Jared Cook and Traquan Smith to handle it. If anything, I think it means more passes to Alvin Kamara. So,
yeah, he may get 10, 12 targets.
Yeah, so that's probably where most of their offensive output will come from.
And Kamara is, compared to other people, kind of cheap in DFS. So look at him.
And then we also have Jamison Crowder, who is looking like he's not going to play. The Jets news just keeps getting worse for the Jets. They're going to have Denzel Mims active today for the first time, but it's going to be him and Rashad Perryman and Chris Herndon, which has not been involved whatsoever this year for whatever reason. But that's
a big blow for that Jets team because Crowder was really the only guy that was worth anything in that offense. And without him, I mean, is there any doubt that Buffalo's the top play this week on defense?
Yeah, Buffalo's defense and then Josh Allen and then Bill's offense could have quite a day against the Jets. So, Then the second biggest name aside from Michael Thomas, we got Joe Mixon out today. So anyone who picked up Giovanni Bernard and his mustache.
Yeah, he's looking like the Cincinnati version of Super Mario.
I saw one tweet today that said he's turning in from a mustache to a must start. But yeah, we'll see what he can do against Cleveland. Their run defense has been kind of stout, but their passing defense is not. So maybe Gio gets quite a bit of catches today. That's pretty much, the main guys. We got Sammy Watkins out as well. Raheem Mostert's back to IR, I believe. Tyler Offert's out. Austin Hooper's out. Dawson Knox is out. I don't think anyone's playing him, obviously. But that's all the news I have so far for players that are out this week. So not too bad from what we've seen over the past few weeks, but definitely some people losing some big-time players here.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just what we're seeing this year. I feel like, we have guys missing because of COVID, and it's late in the week. I mean, just imagine if that would have been, Darren Waller or George Kittle, yeah, it's not big news because it was Dawson Knox, but, I mean, it just goes to show you that, COVID's not going to care about your fantasy team this year. It doesn't seem like. Because, I mean, Emmanuel Sanders had a big game last week, was set up to have another big game, and then now you see he's out. So, and then injuries on top of that. I know we're about to get into some more injuries, but it seems like, I don't know if it was the lack of preseason, the lack of contact practice, but man, people are just dropping like flies. So,
yeah, and I think a lot of it, the hamstring injury has been a big part of the lack of practice and stuff because
it's like hamstring and ankles.
Because anytime you try to ramp up from, very little, practicing or game action, you had no preseason, you just try to go full speed. That's when you start getting those hamstring injuries and strains and whatnot. Mr. Tavenot has another question for us. Rams, Washington, or Dallas as a defensive streamer?
Well, unfortunately, I'm starting Dallas. You don't want to do that.
And I'm starting Washington, and I don't want to do that, but
let's see, who's this third one?
The Rams. They're playing Chicago. That's probably my pick. I mean, if I would go Rams over those other two.
Yeah, Washington against Dallas, could be good. But yeah, I think I'm going Rams.
Something in me tells me that after what Dalton did last week, he's just going to completely flip the script with all that offensive talent. It's just going to burn Washington now that I'm playing their defense. So it's the best option I got though in a 16-teamer.
Yeah, and Dallas is not a bad one either. Kyle Allen's look good, but I don't think you can sit Aaron Donald right now. I mean, he's going to get you probably 2 sacks and a couple TFLs if you have that as a stat. So.
Yeah, so just a few more injuries here. Just the ones that are questionable that I saw. Hopkins questionable but expected to play. Justin Jackson, Jeff Wilson are also questionable but expected to play from what I've seen. And that's pretty much it for the injury front that I gathered before we went live. So if anything comes across, I'll be sure to tell you guys. But we're going to move on into some players. Matt, I know Matt wanted to ask me, we're approaching the halfway point of the season. Some players what I think about some of these players and if I, go ahead and buy or sell them off. So 1 second before that, though, we got one more question.
Amen, brother.
But yeah, so Matt, if you want to.
Yeah, so I've got a few names here. Some that keep coming to mind as we're talking, but Michael Thomas, is he someone that, like you said, if you have Michael Thomas, you're probably, unless you just got lucky with some picks, like say you had a Stephon Diggs in like the 4th or Robbie Anderson in like the 8th or whatever, you're probably not doing well. If you're an owner of Michael Thomas and say you are 0-6 or 1-5 or 2-4, are you buying or are you selling? I'm sorry, for some flex pieces or some wide receiver 2 upside guys, or are you on the flip side? Are you buying if you're a 5-1, 6-0, 4-2 team, and you think that you can withstand the storm for the next 2 weeks, however long it's going to be that he's out?
Well, here's my philosophy. I mean, you never trade a player, at his absolute lowest, especially someone like Michael Thomas. But if you're absolutely desperate and you need win now, you may have to. So if I'm, like 1 or 2 losses from probably missing the playoffs or, realistically, I would certainly try to sell them off. And if I'm on the opposite spectrum, if I'm 6-0 or 5-1 or whatever, and I'm just trying to stack people for a playoff run, I would definitely, ask the owner of but also I don't want to pay too much. Like, I don't want to overpay for someone like Michael Thomas just off the name. But if I can get him for, like my 3rd or 4th receiver and maybe a running back, I mean, yeah, I would do it if I was the team that's in the top of the league. So.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat. If I am, and I don't even know what an owner might take for Michael Thomas at this point. I believe trade deadlines are coming up, in about 2.5 weeks here in leagues. I believe it's like around November 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, something like that. So, if he's still out by then, you may be able to get a better deal. But, yeah, I think we talk about a lot just in our personal conversations about name value. And I think if someone drafted Michael Thomas, number 5 overall, like, they're not going to take your, I don't know, even know what you would offer for him, So I think you can try to buy him if you're one of those 4-2, 5-1 teams. Just throw some things out there, start a discussion. That's the whole thing with trading, I think, is just being open to a discussion. Don't, talk down other people's players. Don't try to bully people into a trade, but just have a discussion with them and see what you can get. All right, so a couple other names I have here that we'll go into that'll lead us into some different kind of conversation is we saw Antonio Brown this week got signed by Tampa Bay. So now that puts the entire receiving core there in question, right? You have Antonio Brown going to be there week 9, assuming he doesn't go off the rails in the next 2 weeks. You have Chris Godwin, who's been in and out of the lineup, and you have Mike Evans, who's been catching touchdowns. But, out of all of those, let's just go person by person, I guess. Antonio Brown, the hot name this week. What's your expectations for him? Are you buying him as a comeback player, or are you selling him as, he'd rather wait and see than pay up front.
Well, and before we get into that, which I mean, it's a good segue to this question, though. My buddy Roberto asked, "I'm currently starting Godwin. Is it worth the risk to plug in Higgins instead, half PPR?" I say go Godwin against the Raiders. Higgins has been nice, and he could be nice today against the Browns, but I would lean Godwin today.
Yeah, agreed. I think you go with who's done it longer, and that's Godwin.
But to answer your question, Antonio Brown is someone I'm waiting on. I don't have any reason to trust him. I know, obviously, we all know what he's done, what he used to be, but he's tried to make it work with two teams last year in the Raiders and the Patriots, and we saw what happened. I know this move was all Brady, I feel like, because Brady, for whatever reason, has his back, believes in him, believes he can be, a player close to what he used to be, and that he can help their team win now. So, I mean, I like the move from the standpoint of, Bucs are going all in to win this thing this year. Mm-hmm. And they look better than I thought they would. I mean, their defense has really kept them in some games and then allowed Tom Brady to beat Tom Brady. But, moving forward, Godwin has had some injury stuff. Evans has had some injury issues. So, if anything, it is a good depth piece. But, I mean, I don't expect Antonio Brown to just immediately take either of those guys over. So, it's going to take a minute before he gets acclimated to this offense and gets back to game speed. So,
and my only counterpoint to that would be we saw last year, well, two things. One, Tom Brady loves this guy, apparently. I mean, he lived with him for his short time in New England, and Brady's been lobbying for this guy. I mean, we thought this time last week, maybe not even this time last week, like 3 days ago, we thought Antonio Brown, a.k.a. Mr. Big Chest, wherever that comes from, was headed to play with Russell Wilson, and all of the people with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett stock were holding their breath a little bit. But then Tom Brady comes out of the blue for a guy in Bruce Arians who said he would never sign Antonio Brown. And Antonio Brown actually, I think, called him a clown last year. To flip it to where they're signing him now to a 1 year, I think it's $2.5 million contract. So in the one game that he played with Brady last year, he only played like 30-something% of the snaps in that game. And he had 8 targets, 4 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. So I think Brady likes this guy a lot, and he's going to have to prove it quick to Bruce Arians that it was worth the signing. So does he get 8 targets? Probably not. But I think it's kind of the same and a guy we're going to talk about later is the Le'Veon Bell situation. Like, you probably don't start him your first week if you have him. Maybe you're forced into it with bye weeks, but just see what he does his first game, and then if he does well, then you're excited. If he doesn't, then keep him on your bench until he does something, But I'm not downgrading Godwin and Mike Evans a ton right now. They've only been playing like wide receiver twos anyways, I guess, when they're playing. So what about Godwin? And, we talked about with Roberto's question, currently starting Godwin. I don't think Antonio Brown's not playing until week 9. So would you try to sell Godwin? Like maybe if he has a big game this week or next week, would you try to sell him before Antonio Brown gets there off the hype? Or, because I mean, it will knock him down a little bit, I would have to think, but I don't know if it's enough to warrant selling him.
Yeah, I mean, if he has a big game, I might try to sell him. I mean, if not for just the fact that, 1, Antonio Brown's coming in, 2, they're trying to play with their defense in the run game anyway, the Bucs, and Godwin's been hurt. So maybe if you can get, a good deal out of it, then yeah, I would entertain it. But other than that, I'm just going to hold. But we got another question coming in from Juan Garcia. He says, start 2, Jacobs, Gurley, Henderson, Bernard, Williams. I'm guessing he means Jamal Williams, which
yeah.
And he's got Gio Bernard. But, I mean, you kind of have to start Jacobs and Gurley, I feel like. It's going to be hard for me to set either of those 2 guys for Bernard or Williams.
I'd actually suggest Jacobs and Jamal, I think, just because Jamal's going to, I think, get so many touches, and he was already getting decent touches, and now he's the guy. And I think he'll get a lot of dump offs. So I don't know how many catches a game Aaron Jones was having. You probably have a better idea, but since you own him, but yeah, I don't know. That's tough. I think I'm definitely sitting Henderson and Bernard, but I think Jamal Williams might be overtake early for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a toss-up. Gurley's just he's like in the top 7. I think he's like 7th in rushing attempts, I read the other day. And he's been playing really well. They're playing Detroit. I mean, he could have quite a few dump-offs himself today. So, I don't know. It's hard for me to set those two guys, even for Jamal Williams. I know Jamal Williams' matchup today, too, though, and volume could really – I mean, Matt LaFleur's talking like, Dylan's going to be the main guy today, but I know Jamal Williams will certainly be the passing down back. So,
yeah, I will say this: if you have Jamal Williams and you're not starting him, I don't see any reason to hold him if you want to pick up another backup or something somewhere, because Aaron Jones will be back next week, barring a setback, and he said he could have played this week, but they just held him out. So, but I would. I'm always a fan of picking up like big, high-profile backups like Tony Pollard or some of those guys. So there's no reason to hold Jamal Williams past this week, in my opinion, right now, for whatever it's worth. But yeah, Jacobs and Gurley, Jacobs and Williams, for sure Jacobs, and then toss up for the next one.
Yeah, and like you said, I think in a deep league you could hold Jamal Williams just in case like Aaron Jones does have a setback, but I think Jamal Williams has kind of had some standalone value as well in these games, because he has been getting used in the passing game quite a bit to kind of spell Aaron Jones and keep him fresh. I know Matt LaFleur, he likes to keep Aaron Jones fresh because he thinks he needs him more in the fourth quarter when defenses are tired. He wants to wear them down. So we have another question from James Lieb. He said, buys and injuries have me scrambling for a flex. In half-point PPR, would you go Latavius Murray, Marvin Jones, or Tim Patrick?
I'm going Tim Patrick. In our text thread that we have, I was talking about how I think in full PPR he's had 14-plus points like each of the past 3 games, and we'll see how Noah Fant affects that being back. I don't think it hurts him. I think it actually helps him. So I'm going Tim Patrick. Latavius Murray honestly probably has 2 touchdown upside today. I mean, Carolina's run defense is really bad, but he also has 14 carries for 40 yards upside too. So downside, I guess you could say. And Marvin Jones, I'm just not starting.
Yeah, and I actually, if I were to go based off matchup, I would go Marvin Jones since he's playing Atlanta. But, I mean, Tim Patrick, probably he's basically their top weapon besides Noah Fant. The Kansas City secondary he's facing does give me a little pause, but I think you got to go Patrick and then Marvin Jones if you don't want to go him.
Yeah, and Marvin Jones has been absolutely awful. So
yeah, and I don't understand the reasoning for that, but because everything's been the same pretty much for them. So Marvin Jones is usually a really good underrated guy that you can get late. So
yeah, well, one of the things with them is Hawkinson's been more involved, and they're running the ball, I feel like, more consistently this year. So
yeah, and DeAndre Swift's starting to be used more in the passing game too. So
yeah, I've got another buy sell guy if you want me to keep going here. I'll take a break from the position players, talk about a quarterback. What do you think about Tua time? Are you interested there? I know you're a former, as a young lad, and I know you have family members that are fans of Alabama, but what are you thinking of Tua? Do you think he has as much or close to the success that Fitzmagic did, or is it just going to be a, 1 week he gets 25, the next week he gets 8, the next week he gets 13?
Well, I will say one thing. I think Ron Fitzpatrick got the raw end of this deal, and I don't believe that the position they're in that they should put Tua in right now. I get they're coming off the bye week and everything, but his first game is going to be against the Rams, and then he's going to have to play Arizona, which hasn't been a great defense, but they're also a team that can score a lot of points. So I mean, it's just like, why not put him in, later on against the Jets or Denver or someone like that? I just don't understand it from that philosophy. But I mean, obviously everyone's excited to see him. He should do pretty well. But again, I would have sat him longer. I would have let him learn under Ron Fitzpatrick, and the way Ron Fitzpatrick was playing, there was no reason to sit him right now in this division. I mean,
yeah, I wonder what Miami fans are thinking now, because I mean they've been so bad for so long, and now they have a chance at the division. I mean, I think they're 1 game back, so it's like, and then you see Fitzmagic just come out, and at first I thought it was a joke, honestly, when he was like, "Oh, I'm heartbroken" and all this, but no, he's like genuinely upset, which you don't see from Fitzpatrick a lot. So,
well, I mean, any player who's playing at that level, coming off those 2 performances he had, and then gets benched. I mean, that's just kind of demoralizing. I mean, you can't do much better than he was doing these last 2 weeks. So, I'm personally not buying the Tua hype. I mean, it's very easy to find a startable quarterback, and most people have theirs at this point. I mean, if you want to grab him for your bye week or whatever, or you're in a 2 quarterback league, then go ahead. But I don't know. I'm just not sold on him yet. I'll just take the wait and see approach.
Yeah, I grabbed him in our 16 teamer, and I ended up having to drop him because of injuries, and I basically have like 18 players on my team that could be a low end flex play, but I have to play like 3 of them. But yeah, he's someone that, I mean, definitely don't pay for in a trade. Like, if you got some Alabama fan in your league that's like really mad that you picked up 2 instead of him, like, offer him a trade for somebody and see who you can get for sure. You got to know that's where knowing your league comes into play. But otherwise, don't pay for him. Up next, I have the Kansas City backfield situation, Le'Veon Bell and CEH. I think CEH will eventually get knocked down to more the RB2 instead of the RB1 range, and then Le'Veon Bell becomes kind of a flex play. I don't want to say it's like the Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb situation, because they don't run as much as Cleveland does, but I do think that Le'Veon Bell will have some standalone value. I think next week against the Jets, they're just going to let Le'Veon Bell absolutely go insane. But what's your take in that situation? Are you selling if you have CEH? Like last week, he had like 160 yards, I think, or something like that against the Bills. It looked like they couldn't stop, water. But buy, sell, Le'Veon and CEH. What do you think?
Well, I would have tried to sell Edwards-Helaire last week after that game and then after the Bell news. So it might be a little late to kind of do that because a lot of people are going to be scared. So yeah, at this point, I guess you just wait and see. And then obviously Bell's probably not going to be too involved this week. So maybe try to sell him after this game. But it's very unfortunate for CEH owners because he keeps I know he had 1 touchdown waved off last week, but I want to say he had 2, but I can't remember.
He only had 1 touchdown, I think, week 1 the entire year.
Yeah, and he's had several waved off this year, and it sucks because everyone's like, oh, he can't score touchdowns and all this, but he's had several waved off due to flags. So, and now I feel like Bell coming in, he's probably going to get more of the touchdowns. So it is unfortunate for CH, and he's dropping down quick with this news, and the more involved Bell gets. And then Andy Reid is always kind of mysterious with his running backs anyway. He doesn't really tell you what he's going to do. We saw that when, Damian, with the rise of Damian Williams and all these guys. So it's certainly not a good time to have CEH, in my opinion.
Is Bell someone who you're even thinking about starting anywhere this week, or is he a definite must sit, wait and see?
I mean, if you're in a deep league and you want to flex him, or you just had bye week issues and you want to flex him, I would be down for that. But other than that, if you're going to try to make your running back 1 immediately, I don't suggest that. But
Yeah, I think for sure I think he has great touchdown upside even starting this week. I mean, I think they want to get him some confidence off the bat. I mean, especially headed into next week in his revenge game with the Jets, and so like I could definitely see 4 catches, 60 total yards and a touchdown. I don't think that would be too crazy. So I agree there, and I think if you're buying Le'Veon Bell, definitely before the Jets game is the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if he has a down game this week, that's where you go to the owner that has Bell, say, hey, looks like they're in a timeshare, but I'm interested in Bell. What do you think it takes for him? Because I think against the Jets, like I said, I think they're going to let him, dance in Adam Gase's face as much as he wants. We have another question here from C Chat. It says Ayuk or Bird, which is the receiver for Patriots, or go get Gabriel Davis from Buffalo and Edelman or Gage. So sounds like we're picking one from the first 3 and then one from the second 2. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's what it appears to be.
All right, I'll take the first 3. You take the second 2. All right. So I'll say the first 3. I'm going Ayuk, just because they use him in a lot of different ways. I think he has the most touchdown upside of those 3. What do you think for the next 2?
I'm definitely going Edelman, even though he's been down. But I don't. I mean, with Julio back, I don't really see Gage being a huge factor. So go Edelman.
Yep, agreed. It's funny, we had somebody in our league saying they were going to roll out Gabriel Davis this week, and I just don't see it. I don't know. With John Brown being out, I guess people are excited about him, but I mean, John Brown's basically been out for 6 weeks, so.
Yeah, and I mean, Gabriel Davis could have a touchdown and stuff, but I mean, it's probably going to be Diggs and the running backs, I feel like, making most of the plays. He actually is starting Gabriel Davis, so that might be because I also have Josh Allen, so maybe he's just banking on that canceling out. But
yeah, and let's talk about that strategy for a second. I mean, is that something is that more of just like a pride kind of thing? Because let's say Gabriel Davis, like the guy we're talking about, for example, I know he was deciding between Gabriel Davis and Tim Patrick, right?
Gabriel Davis or
no, I was talking about in our league.
Oh yeah.
It's like, sure, what if Gabriel Davis has 1 catch for a touchdown, and it cancels out Josh Allen? What if Tim Patrick has 4 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown? It's like you didn't cancel out Josh Allen. You more than canceled out Josh Allen, So,
well,
if it's a big name player, I can see it more. But if it's like you're throwing a Hail Mary to try to cancel a touchdown, I don't really get that.
Well, and it's kind of like a double-edged sword type deal. I mean, yeah, you're canceling out, their quarterback or whatever, because obviously receivers in PPR leagues get more for the touchdown than the quarterback does. But at the same time, you're also getting points while they're getting points. So it's kind of like a moot point. But, I mean –
yeah, I just want the guy that's going to score the most points regardless.
And then what happens when you play a guy just to cancel him out and he doesn't do anything for you? Now you've burnt yourself. So, yeah, it's kind of just – I mean, it's the same like weird superstition that people have that your Thursday night – don't start any Thursday night players because they always suck. That's not the case. It just feels like, when you have a bad player on Thursday night, it's just so much more emphasized because you got to wait all those days until Sunday to
yeah, you're staring at him for 3 days. But then if you have a guy that goes off, you're like have the most confidence you've ever had heading into Sunday. So there's a lot of narratives like that. It's like if you text your friend about a no-hitter in the middle of a game, does it really matter? Does the pitcher really know that?
It does if you're a Braves. It does if you're a Braves fan.
Sports are all about superstitions, and when they work, we say they work, and then when they don't work, we just we say it's coincidence or whatever. But
I mean, basically, the main the one I will say is certainly something you don't want to do is start your defense against your own quarterback. that's usually not a recipe for. Because either way, you're gonna. I mean, your quarterback has a bad day, your defense has a good day, but and vice versa. Like, if your quarterback has a good day, your defense is going to be awful. So,
I agree. Yeah, it's like being on a diet but eating cake.
You got any more buy sell for me?
I don't, but we can jump into some sit start if you want, or boom bust. There we go. I don't even know my own stuff here. So boom bust. We've already talked about a couple of these guys, but some guys we have not talked about. Let's hop in with Traquan Smith. He is presumably the number one wide receiver. They basically have him, Harris, who I can't remember his first name, and
Damian Harris.
Yeah, and Marcus Callaway.
Or Deontay Harris, sorry. Got Damian Harris on the one.
So Traquan Smith, do you think he is a boom candidate or a bust candidate today?
Well, before we get to that, hold that thought. We got one more question from TS here. He says, pick 2, Gio, McKinnon, Justin Jackson, or Brandon Cooks, PPR 1 for running back, 2, 1 for flex. So we got to pick one running back at least, and then 1 for flex.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I'm going Gio and Cooks, honestly. McKinnon's playing the Patriots. Justin Jackson, I don't really know about him.
Cooks. Justin Jackson got like 20 touches last game. So he's looking like their top guy, but he's also been limited a little bit with a knee injury. So I'm going Gio there too. And Cooks has been basically balling out recently. I know you have him.
Yeah, and they're playing Green Bay, so it could be a lot of passing there from Deshaun Watson.
And you have to think Jair Alexander would be covering Will Fuller a lot. So, yeah, I like Gio and Cooks.
But to answer your question about Traquan Smith, it's tough because based on our league settings, which I think are pretty standard for PPR, I'm pretty sure Carolina's been like 31st against or second best against. Okay, they've been third best, I believe, against wide receivers. So I don't know. It's tough. I mean, Traquan Smith.
He had like a 2-touchdown game 2 weeks ago, and then last week it was Emmanuel Sanders' time to shine. So
yeah, and I think this week's going to be a heavy dose of the run game from them playing Carolina. The run defense has been really bad. They're just going to use Kamara and Latavius Murray, I feel like, a whole lot. And I think most of the passes will go to Kamara. So I think Traquan could bust here.
All right, and after that, let's talk about Latavius Murray. Is he going to – I have him as a – he's the most, I feel like, out of a lot of flex plays out there, the most could boom, could bust kind of guy just because he gets so much volume, it seems like. But it's like – it's not necessarily quality volume unless it's at the goal line. So I have him as a boom candidate here because I think he, especially if they get up, like, are they going to risk Kamara that much? No, probably not. So I have him as a 1 to 2 touchdown upside guy this week. So what do you think?
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you're playing him, you're not expecting much. Whereas you play Traquan Smith, you're expecting to put up, he's a wide receiver. He's their number 1 wide receiver this week. You're expecting big numbers. But you play Latavius Murray, you're just kind of throwing him out there saying, if he gets a touchdown or gets, more work because their Carolina defense sucks. And so I would label him as a boom this week too.
Cool. Moving on here, we have T. Higgins. So we saw AJ Green more involved last week. AJ Green, I think, got like 9 or 10 targets last week. T. Higgins been solid. Boom, bust with all those mouths to feed. And they're playing the Browns, so not too scary there. Just depends where Denzel Ward lines up.
Yeah, I agree.
So you think he's someone who you're starting with confidence, or is he more of a, smoke screen over the past few weeks?
No, I like him this week against that defense. He's not, he's probably more like my wide receiver 2 or a flex more so than anything else. But if you don't have any other options, then you could do a lot worse than him. We got one question from Eric, our editor-in-chief. Drop one for a kicker. Hawkinson, he has Johnny Smith already. Fournette, Akers, or Edmonds? I say drop Akers.
Yeah, Akers.
Akers or Fournette, I mean, but probably Akers.
Hawkinson honestly can fill in if you have a bye week for a flex player. I mean,
yeah, and I think Tennessee had their bye already, and so did the Lions haven't had it. But
try to trade. If you don't think you're going to use Hawkinson, try to trade him for some. I would trade for Hawkinson right now because I've been starting Tyler Higbee, and that's been awful. So,
yeah, Hawkinson's been really good. So, tight end's rough this year, especially with Ertz being awful and then getting hurt and all these other things happening. So,
yeah, man, what's up with Ertz?
I don't know. I wish he'd get traded, and it's looking like they may entertain that prospect because he's on a contract a year. They have Dallas Goedert. Richard Rodgers looked good the other night without him, so maybe they'll take some offers.
I'm just wondering what a good spot for him to land would be.
I don't know, but I just don't understand how he's not more involved after the lack. I mean, I drafted him and traded for him thinking, he's going to have a ton of upside. All these receivers are hurt. They have no weapons. And then he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. So,
yeah, funny story. I drafted Darren Waller, traded him to you in a package with Higbee in it preseason. Then you traded Waller for Ertz, and we're both like, man, we're idiots.
Yeah, and I think at one point I had Hunter Henry, I had Waller. So now I'm sitting here with Richard Rodgers, which worked out for me Thursday. But
yeah, there was your boom bust of the week.
Eric says, thanks. I don't want to give up on Akers, but that's the right call, I think. Eric, I know you're usually right when it comes to these arguments with us, but I think it's time to cut ties with Cam Akers.
Yeah.
I want him to be good, but unfortunately the only place he's worked out for me is Madden Ultimate Team.
Yeah, I think with that backfield, it's hard to even trust fully Henderson because we've seen Malcolm Brown come in and be the hot hand, So I think definitely that backfield is not supporting three guys.
Yeah, and it's just like there's three guys that any week could put up those numbers, and you never know who it's going to be. So I don't want any part of that situation.
Agreed.
Do you have any other boom bust candidates?
I did. Deontay Johnson, you mentioned him briefly earlier. Mm-hmm. It's been the Claypool show. Last week it was the James Washington show. But Deontay Johnson, beginning of the year, everyone was like, oh, this guy's going to be like the steal of the draft. And then he's been dealing with back injuries. Mm-hmm. So I think before last week, he was still leading the team in targets when he hadn't played in 2 weeks. So what do you think about Deontay Johnson? Are you starting him?
Against Tennessee, they've been pretty weak against receiver. And there's probably a lot of people that don't really have a choice but to start him. Start him if you got him, but I think he could bust today just because the emergence of Claypool, his injuries, there's a good chance he gets re-injured again, I feel like. I think it was his back, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah.
It's hard for me to – Claypool's just been so dominant, and I just don't see –
I think with someone like that where you have – such a high re-injury risk, I think the risk is so much bigger than the reward with him that I would go other directions.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want, and I think me and you have both been victim of this year, different leagues, like Austin Eckler went down the first drive. It's that just takes all wind out of your sails for that whole week, So you'd really just want to avoid that as much risk as you can, especially when it's win now mode. I feel like we're in the middle of the season. So,
yeah.
Last one I had was, and we didn't really talk a ton about him, just in a start sit question, is Brandon Cooks. What have you liked about Cooks, and do you see it continuing?
Well, so going into the year, I loved Cooks because I do the wide receiver pre-draft rankings every year. I did them again this year, and I found like during the research that Brandon Cooks has not finished below wide receiver 24 in like 4 or 5 years or whatever it's been, and he's done it with multiple teams. And again, he finds himself on a new team this year. And now we're seeing, after him and Watson had time to gel and stuff, he's really coming on. I mean, there for a minute, he had like 0 points one week, he had 5 points the next, but then the last 2 games, he's had 30 something and 20 something. Let me see again. He had 12 targets, 8 receptions, 161 yards, and a touchdown week 5. And then last week he had 9 targets, 9 receptions, 68 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, the other thing about it is you're getting a guy that, like, if Fuller goes down, which is a high possibility given his record, given his track record, then you've got an automatic, like, bona fide top wide receiver. So they are going to bye week 8, but yeah, Cooks is – I'm liking him a lot more than Julian Edelman right now. I mean, Julian Edelman coming into the season I thought was going to be my number 2 wide receiver, but Cooks has outperformed Hilton too that's on my team. So, I mean, Cooks is looking really good. Looks like he could finish top 25 again. So definitely, yeah. I don't know if you need a receiver and you need to, and you're heavy on running backs, maybe go try to get him from somebody. And if you're the Cooks owner, maybe you want to sell high based on the last 2 games if you don't trust him. So,
yeah, I've got a personal sit-start question for you since I'm playing someone in your division in our league. What do you think between AJ Green and Traquan Smith this week?
Given when you look at their matchups, I like AJ Green's better, but it's tough because Traquan Smith, like we said, number 1 wide receiver for him this week. But It's just hard to trust that with that matchup and the situation that Traquan Smith could outdo him. But I think
I'm just so tempted to start Le'Veon Bell, and I know I need to just not. But
yeah,
I'm just afraid they get up early and they let Le'Veon Bell just like get used to the playbook, because I don't think it's not like Le'Veon Bell hasn't played this year. He has. And so, there's no way Denver keeps up with Kansas City, I don't think, but who knows really. So I'll probably end up sticking with Traquan and AJ Green, but it's definitely an interesting dilemma I have here. And I know when you have this many people you're looking at to start in the flex, it's like, you're probably not going to make the exact right call, the optimal lineup. This is where best ball would be nice, but I think I'm with you there. The matchup's too good for AJ.
And interesting, we kind of talked about the weather a little bit, but you said you didn't know that if the Broncos could keep up with the Chiefs, but this shot we got in our Discord from this morning, somebody sent in 9:56 a.m. The field was covered in snow, so we'll see how that plays out. I don't know that it's supposed to keep snowing the rest of the day, but
that's good for the running backs.
Yeah, so it could.
I think that's also good for someone like Tyreek Hill who can burn someone, because corners are running backwards first. Slipping happens often, especially against a guy like Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek Hill may be I could see him breaking loose for sure.
But yeah, definitely snow game, divisional game. It's gonna be fun. So
yeah, don't start saying these things because I'll put Le'Veon Bell in. Don't think I won't.
He could go wild today, but it's hard to trust just off.
Yeah, it's also hard to trust Traquan Smith. Where I'm.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I would go Bell and AJ Green above him. I think I'd definitely go AJ Green above him this week.
Yeah.
I just don't. I feel like Traquan is just a guy who works better when he's got other guys out there with him, and I just don't know how he'd be against as a number 1 wide receiver, but could be wrong.
Yeah, I could also see Drew Brees having 150 yards and no touchdowns, and that's all spread out to 8 different guys, and I think it's just going to be such an Alvin Kamara game.
Yeah, and it feels like Drew Brees never passes more than 10 yards a play, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and as you said, Carolina's secondary is limiting receivers pretty well. So this is where you don't need to look at the projected points and just go with situations, always tough. But that was it for my boom bust there. We can hop into the DFS place because it's almost lock time here, 10 minutes away. So you got any guys you're looking at?
Well, obviously, as much crap as we talked about Traquan Smith, I'm sure he is a good value. Let me check his price in there.
Oh, in DFS, or at least in DraftKings, I believe he's down 4,000. So, I mean, he's below tight ends at this point, which is pretty good value.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously Traquan Smith's one. Jamal Williams, I don't know his price.
Same, 4,000.
So him and A.J. Dillon are probably really good plays.
Gio Bernard is a little more expensive, but still a good value, I think.
Yeah, I think I would take Williams over Bernard in terms of price and situation today. But
you could also take both and just say, hope for it gives you money to spend elsewhere. I guess what I'm trying to say. So, What about quarterback this week? So that's somewhere where I always say that's a good place you can save, but there's also some really, really good matchups this week. Like are you paying up for a Russell Wilson or Josh Allen or Kyler Murray with their matchups this week?
I mean, I feel like you'd be good with any. Who's the cheapest out of those three?
Kyler Murray.
Interesting. Well, I would probably go him then. If not, I think I'd go Josh Allen. But
yeah, so we have Russell Wilson's the top guy at 8,000, Josh Allen's 7,700, and then Kyler Murray 7,100.
So yeah, I think I'd definitely go Kyler Murray there because Seattle's secondary has been one of the worst in the league.
What do you think about as a value play Matthew Stafford against your Falcons?
I don't know. Their defense looked a lot better last week, and Kirk Cousins looked pretty bad. So, I mean, I'm not saying they do it again, but I like, I'd rather pay up for one of those other guys than get Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. Any value plays for you this week on the DFS slate, or do you think it's like you need to pay up for one of these guys, especially in prime time with Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, Christian Kirk's a guy I think you could sneak in there that might have a big day. We saw what he did against Dallas. I don't know.
At the quarterback position, any value?
At the quarterback, yeah.
We have Teddy Bridgewater against New Orleans. We have Dalton, but no one cares. Ryan Tannehill plays Pittsburgh. And then we have guys like, Kyle Allen against Dallas could be a sneaky play. Jimmy Garoppolo against New England, not really there.
I just think at quarterback this week, it's one of those weeks where you need to pay for one of those top three. But I also feel that way about the defense this week. You should probably pay for the Bills defense against the Jets. So,
yeah,
I just don't really like any other value plays at quarterback in their matchups as much as I like the top guys. This Bronco Plays asks T. Higgins or Brandon Cooks, standard league. I think if it's standard, I'm probably going Brandon Cooks because he's had a few touchdowns here over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I'm with you. Brandon Cooks. And if it's a flex spot, like in standard, I'm always looking at running back first. Whereas in PPR, I'm probably looking at wide receiver first. But yeah, I think still there. It sounds like it might be more of a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 spot. So I'm good with Cooks.
All right. Well, we're about 5 minutes till kickoff. So I'm gonna kind of hop off and cut this short here so Matt and I can get our lineup set. There's a lot of crazy things, with the injuries and stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and sign off. So Matt, is there anything else you got for everybody?
No, we got a crazy division that we're in here. The Cowboys. I think the Eagles just took over first place, and they have like 2 wins or 3 wins, whatever it is. So hoping the Cowboys can get a win today. They're playing against, Washington. And if we can't beat Kyle Allen, then I think the whole team should just retire for the rest of the year. So how are you feeling about your Falcons today?
I feel good. I feel like they're going to carry the momentum from last game into this one. They're kind of taking the mindset of they're 1-0. Like they're just trying to forget everything that happened before the firing of Dan Quinn and all that. So, and we usually do all right against the Lions, but it is usually a close game. And apparently him and Matthew Stafford are pretty good buddies, but they're also, really good competitors. So I think could be a high scoring, close game. So,
cool. Well, good luck to both of us because we're both struggling in the NFL fandom department this year. So, as always, it was fun. Thanks for your questions, everyone. Good luck to everybody in your DFS and fantasy matchups this week, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, and guys, just a reminder, catch us, you can catch us every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. We could try to go till 1 usually. And also look out for our Thursday morning article on Reddit, also on the website. It comes out at 8 a.m. usually. Start sit or sit start, whichever you prefer. We have a lot of other great columns on the site, betting previews and Eric has his rankings every week. So it looks like we may have one more question. CeeDee Lamb or McKinnon PPR? I'm going CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb. McKinnon, I think, with Hasty there, that's another guy we could have talked about. Might be difficult.
And then he says Brady or Tannehill.
Tannehill.
Interesting. I think I'm going Brady. I trust Brady more against Tannehill's playing Pittsburgh, and that defense is pretty good, even though they lost Devin Bush. So, all right, guys. Well, we had one guy say half PPR need 3, but he never gave us the option, so I don't really know. Sorry, Richmond Doc, we can't really answer without the players' names.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're signing out. Going to get our lineup set. We appreciate it. We'll see y'all next week.
All right.